Welcome, future leaders. Today, our sustainability talk is about the food transparency. It's a great pleasure to have you here, and we are organizing those sustainability talks in order to help you take action on the most important topic of the decade. Consumers are making deeper connections between the food they eat and the value they uphold. With social media, their voices are amplifying. Brands may suffer lasting damage to its reputation if online complaints are not identified and resolved quickly and effectively. How to get in sync with core consumers' values? Well, the answer is trust. Building consumer confidence through transparency. So now I have my guests, Carlos, Adriana, and Stamatia, as speakers of these sustainability talks. And I have a question for you for us to kick off. What is the best way for industries to build trust? And how sustainability can create loyal consumers?
So I think I can take that one. First, if you want to create trust, there are two things that you have to bear in mind. First is that you need to be transparent. And second is that you need to be credible. So you need to know your numbers. And to know your numbers, we will learn today how to get your numbers right, how to get to know your numbers. What is the scope 1, 2, and 3? And we're going to see that in a minute. But credibility and also transparency are key for trust. And from my point of view, if you want to address the fastest growing group in the history of humankind, that's the group that is interested in sustainability, in green topics. So that's a huge opportunities for companies. And that's what we're here to tackle today.
Thank you, Carlos.
Yeah, if I can add something, Carlos, it's you're right. It's about transparency, it's about trust, but I think it's also about traceability. Yeah. So when you think about large food companies, the food chain is very long, and it's they make like lots of claims. They write lots of things on the packaging, but are we sure about that information? How can we trace that? Is it really truth? I mean, is it the truth? How can we check that?
Yeah, because there are lots of standards, aren't they? We're going to also learn about that. There are many standards, and as a consumer, you're a little bit lost. So how to really trust those brands?
Exactly. So I have a comment for everybody that is watching us. If you have any question that you would like us to address, feel free to type it on the chat. And one more thing, share this live with other people. I think it will help many industry leaders to be the future leaders if they take action today. So click the button and share with everybody now. And Carlos, I have a suggestion. Why Adriana deep dive a little bit more on the food transparency topic and give us a deep dive on this subject?
Perfect.
Sure, thank you, Carlos and Pedro, and good morning to all of you. I'm Adriana here. Again from my home office. Great to see you this morning again. So let me start with a personal story again. I love it. Usually I like to share stories, and I love to also to hear from your stories, personal stories, but also your company stories around sustainability, around food transparency. So I'm a mom. Yeah, I have a 10 months young little girl. And now she's eating food and also milk. So yeah, so it's a combination. And I'm also wondering a lot of times, what should I give her? What kind of food? Shall I give her my food? Shall I search for better food, healthier food? And I have options. Yeah, I can get to the market here. I live in Italy. Food is very important here. It's all about the taste. It's all about the quality and the sustainability. So I could go to the market and buy it from the local producers here in Italy, and they are also kilometer zero, they call it here. They produce it right here in my city. Yeah. And I can go there and I can ask them, how do you produce it? How do you do it? And they can tell me, and I can decide if I can trust them or not. It's a choice. It's a person talking to me. I can build a relationship with them. But what happens when you are a large food company with a long supply chain? How do you create that trust? I can go to the supermarket as well. There are lots of brands. They have nice packaging, nice labels talking about bio, about 100% natural stuff, all healthy, nutritional values, calories, everything that you want to know. And I'm wondering myself, they know, that they check a lot their providers, their suppliers, that they trace their supply chain, but can I trust that? How can I see that? I cannot see that. It's just, written on the package. I don't know from where is it really coming, that food. So, I don't know if it's just me thinking about my kids' health or my health. Is it also you? Are you also thinking about these kind of things? Because here in Italy, I see lots of people looking at this kind of stuff, and lots of moms also asking about this and about their families, about what they are eating. We are living in a highly polluted world, and healthy food is not easy to find if you think about it. And so I think this is things that all the consumers are thinking about. Where is it coming from? Can I trust this? Is it traced? Is it safe? Is it healthy? Is it sustainable? Yeah. Does it support local communities? Very important. Also in the times of pandemic, we are struggling, to help local providers survive, because they are small companies, small organizations, and they need to survive to bring the food also for their families on the table. So those are very important topics. So the main topics that the consumers are caring about are trust, health, but also sustainability, or let's call it purpose. Yeah, is it sustainable? Are we helping local communities? Are we helping people with it? So how can you build that? Well, let's talk a bit about trust. Yeah, we said we need transparency and we need traceability and we need to be credible. How do you do that in a large food company? Yeah, because you cannot talk to a single person. It's a whole chain. Yeah, very long usually. So we can help here with technology, of course, because this needs to be touched by hand. You need to make sure that it's like this. Everybody needs to check now, double check. And companies also want to engage with the consumers, take this chance and engage with consumers and get more information to them. So by using blockchain networks, permission blockchain networks, you can get all this traceability of all the supply chain and get that information to the consumer in a trusted way, because blockchain cannot be changed, it cannot be corrupted, and you get all the steps from the farmer to the consumer, passing also through the retailer. Yeah, you can get all that information with just using a QR code and an app on your phone. You can get all this information and see from where food is coming and all the traceability behind it. So this creates much more trust, and you can also be maybe surprised by where is it coming from, your fish or your meat or your vegetables on the table. It's nice to find details about that. Second, it's health. Yeah, we said health, it's also very important. So here we talk about ingredients, we talk about bio, we talk about not using pesticides and stuff like that. And again, you need to prove that, and companies need to be very flexible and gather all that information, gather all that data, and work with it in order to bring it to the consumer. Yeah, and use that data to engage the consumer. People want to know that. It's not only about the packaging, it's also about their experience. How do you felt about it? I created maybe a new taste, I changed the recipe. You can get that. Can you get that information? Are you appreciating? Do you like it? Yeah, we live in the experience economy, and food companies also need to understand what's the experience that the consumers are getting by using their products. And by this, they can get continuous feedbacks and improve all the times recipes and improve all the time experience and so on and so forth. And third, we said we care about purpose. Yeah, purpose means we want food companies to be sustainable. We want to help people and we want to help local communities. Sustainable means that they need to take care of, the energy that they use to create those products, the amount of water. Yeah, producing meat, for example, needs really a lot of water, but not only. In the end, everything needs water. So it's just a matter of understanding how we can, balance all these ingredients and make tasty and healthy food. And it's also about reducing waste. Why not? For example, when you have food recalls, yeah, this is very important topic, food recall, for the health but also for the sustainability. Because I was once with one of our customers who was producing salads, yeah, and they said that they had one problem and they had to recall all the products, and they could not say which batch were affected by the problem. They had to withdraw from the market all the merchandise from that month and clean all the factory in order to be sure that everything was okay, you know. And that brings a lot of damage to the company in terms of cost, in terms of brand image, and you know, in terms of production. They stopped for a month. They just had to clean everything for 1 week and withdraw everything, make sure that everything is fine. But if you could trace that food to back to the farm, you could really understand where is this going. Yeah, so you had the contamination somewhere, you could understand where did it go and withdraw from the market just those ones and clean just those departments from your company where the contamination happened. So transparency and traceability, it's very important also for this. You reduce waste, you give more you give trust to the consumer that you are really tracing what you are doing, and you are also more sustainable because you produce less waste. So these are all very important topics. And going back, maybe let's understand also a bit more about sustainability. We said water, we said energy, but it's also about packaging. Yeah. So large food companies, they produce lots of packaging because they need to bring that in a healthy way and secure way. But like I said, if I go to the market, to the local producer, I can get it without a package. Maybe I can get even a bio packaging or not get it at all. Yeah. So it's all about choices that we do, but it's also about companies understanding how to do it more sustainable. For example, last evening I ordered food at home and I got this bio lasagna, yeah, with bio vegetables, very nice, very tasty. And I noticed that also the packaging was recyclable. The bag was made from paper and it could be recycled, and even the packaging of the food, it was made out of compostable paper, so I could recycle everything. Yeah, nothing left out from my table without being recycled, and I was really happy about it. So it's not only about eating vegan or vegetarian, it's also about sustainability in this case. And companies, you know, are working lots about on labels, like Carlos was saying, is it vegan, is it bio, is it raw vegan, is it vegetarian. It's sometimes it's crazy, lots of standards to follow, every country has a different one. It's really hard to understand sometimes, what am I eating? Yeah, what am I eating? Is this good or not? Is this sustainable? Am I helping companies? Am I helping the local communities? These are all complex topics, and companies need to understand that they need to integrate all the data, cooperate with with all their supply chain, be able to trace everything, bring that transparency to the consumer. Yeah, consumers really want to engage with companies. They want to understand more. I would like to understand more about what am I buying at the supermarket. How can I get that info? How can I communicate feedback? Can I say that I don't like this, that you could improve it in that way? Can I see that the company has actually done some changes and that they acted on my feedback? That's very important for me. And that's also very important for food companies. They struggle a lot to engage with consumers. And this is the way to engage with consumers. Bring that transparency, engage with them, get feedback, improve the processes, improve the recipes. And this will improve everything. This will improve the bottom line, the top line, and the green line, the sustainability. Yeah. So I think I talked enough about what am I eating and my family now. I don't know, what is
Wow.
your ideas on this, Carlos?
Well, I
Pedro.
mean, I think you answer one of the key questions, is why companies should do this. And there are three main reasons why they should care about this. The first one is they need to keep their license to operate. So they need to report on all these kind of emissions to continue operating. And no matter if they sit in the European Union or outside of the European Union and they want to that they do. That's one. Second, they have to be more efficient. They have to do cost reductions. They have to stop wasting energy and materials and to generate so much waste. because those are just intelligent, efficient measures that they can take. You mentioned this, and it's important to you as it is important to many families, and it's important to this global community, is that they need to put together new business models. They need a new branding to approach their customers. So no matter if you do it for reporting, for efficiency, or for innovation, you have to take care of this. And I think you explained it beautifully in the food industry. And if that's okay with
Carlos,
you, Pedro, yeah.
yeah, I have a couple of questions from the audience here. I will bring that up for us, and I think it's a good segue for, I believe, what you have to present and also Stamatia. So we have here a question from Ibrahim Sami, our LinkedIn listener. He's saying, how do you believe is the best way for technology, specifically software technology, to be integrated into sustainable energy cultivation? And how can it be used to lessen a company's ecological footprint? So I would like to keep that question open for us to address in our segues, just to keep it in mind for our dear friend, Ibrahim Sami. Thank you for watching, Ibrahim.
Thank you for the question. And I think some of the topics that we're going to cover are going to share some light on that. But let me start with the basics before we go into the details of how we can take this to different industries. Imagine yourself, you're going to go on a diet, okay? The first thing that you need to know is what is your weight, correct? It is very difficult to carry on a diet if you don't know what's your objective or your destination or your starting point. You need to know your weight. And many companies now are in this position. They need to know which are their greenhouse gas emissions, GHG emissions, but they don't know yet. So before starting, you need to know which is the scale that you're going to use, correct? If you hop on a scale that has a different measuring system than another scale, the results are going to be different. So there are many standards. I'm going to give you two examples. There's some a very well-known standard that is called GRI, Global Reporting Initiative. That's a standard to measure your emissions. But there are other standards. For example, the GHG protocol. Doesn't matter. It's easy. Don't get confused with all these acronyms. Most of them are very, very similar. Just choose one because they are widely accepted. We have some even international standards that are accepted. Choose one, and that's going to be your weight, okay? So we start by knowing that we need to weight ourselves and then understanding which is the scale. Now, let's talk about the name a little bit before going into the details. It's called greenhouse gas emissions. But then, immediately after, we start talking about CO2 emission. Why is that? Is greenhouse or is CO2? Well, there are several greenhouse gases that contribute to the greenhouse gas emissions. But CO2 is responsible for 81% of all of them, okay? And that's why we typically tend to report and to talk about CO2 emissions and not all of them. Other examples of gases are, for example, methane. Methane is responsible for 10% of the total GHG emissions. And just for you to know, it's also easy to convert one into the other. For example, we have for that the energy factors, how much one component of methane translates into carbon. So it's also easy to translate one into the other. Okay, so we know now that we need a weight. We know now that we have a weight scale that we can choose. And we know now that we can talk about CO2 emissions, and we will be talking about 81% of all emissions. Now, Pedro, if you help me with one image to explain what is this scope 1, 2, and 3 in very practical terms. But before I go there, let me explain something. This emissions measurement, you can take it for a company, for a person, for a product, for an event that you organize, for a region in the world, for your city, for example, or for an industry, as Adriana was mentioning, the food industry. You can measure the emissions for a food industry. So you can take many different angles. Did you know, for example, that to keep Earth from warming up more than 2 degrees by 2050, every person in the world has a budget of 2.7 tons of CO2 per year? And did you know that when you travel from Palo Alto to Frankfurt, you emit 3.8 tons that every action means? Then you can control. You can, for example, plan for longer vacations, but only once a year. You can do many things, okay? But you need to know your numbers. And that's why when Pedro was asking, what do we do as brands to establish that deep connection with your customers? You have to know your stuff. You have to know your numbers. You have to be credible. You have to be transparent. And as Adriana mentioned, you have to be traceable. Now, look into the image that we have in front of you. It looks very complicated, but it's very simple. Scope 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and I'm going to start with scope 1. Scope 1, if you're a company, are your direct emissions. The assets under your ownership emit greenhouse gases. Okay, so all those greenhouse gases are part of scope 1. Now, scope 2 are the gases that are emitted by the plants that generate the electricity or the energy that your company uses. That's also very easy to understand. And by the way, it's very easy to get that information from your utilities companies. And now the one that gets people a little bit distracted, or because it's really harder to tackle, is scope 3. Scope 3 is also indirect emissions, so not by the assets controlled by your company, but by the assets that are not controlled by your company, whether they are before your production process or after your production process. And you can see that in the image again. You can see on the left-hand side the upstream activities, those activities that happen before your production process, and downstream activities. An example of that is all the raw materials that you buy. They have a CO2 footprint, and you need to take those into account, the transportations to those materials until they reach your production plants, or downstream activities. For example, how you distribute those materials if you have a franchise network, or how you recycle the final materials, everything that happens until that product is recycled or disappears. Okay, so these are scope 1, 2, and 3, and that's the way we divide the different greenhouse gas emissions. Now, let's take one of those examples of scope 3: traveling. People traveling in your company. Okay, they don't use the means of transportation of your company, and that's why they are not scope 1, but they are scope 3. Okay, so how do you change it? Help me, Pedro, with another image. Every year we work on a corporate travel sustainability index. We go to corporations and ask them what are they doing to minimize their impact of this example of the scope 3 emissions, which is business travel. And we ask them a lot of things of how they are measuring, how they are trying to fix it, etc., etc. So in the next image, what we are gonna look at is what are the recommended ways to solve this. And you will see, even if it's a little bit small, if you're watching us on your mobile phone, but you will see that some of those measures are more popular than others, and some of those measures have more impact than others. There's a very good case that you need to decide. Are you going to give incentives to your people, or are you going to provide penalties? Okay, that is very important and has to fit the corporate culture. But here you have a report on how impactful and how popular those activities are to minimize the CO2 footprint of your business travelers. Another one is, for example, how senior leadership should set an example and challenge unnecessary business trips. So that has to be, of course, communicated to your internal employees. You have to train your employees. You have to also let your customers know the measures that you're talking to minimize corporate travel. Just to give you an example, Apple employees traveling around account for 3% of the total emissions. So it's an important chunk of scope 3. Now I think I spoke enough. Now what we're going to do is, how can we help companies and navigate through this scope 1, 2, 3 with different solutions, with different approach? I'm going to hand it over to Pedro, and then Stamatia is going to help us understanding that.
Excellent, Carlos. And before we go and move to Stamatia, I have one more question from the audience here. It's a follow-up question. How can a company find sustainable suppliers that do not require much more in costs and capital from the company? Is there anything from a solutions perspective that can help on that? And I see in your chart some of the initiatives here. And I understand, Carlos, that we are going to deep dive now on some of the capabilities and solutions to make it happen with Stamatia, correct?
Correct, but let me just not leave those questions unanswered. So I'm going to try to very quickly answer those two. This second one, we're going to give an example of how providers can, for example, acquire recycled plastic. We have created something together with the partners that is called the Plastic Cloud. And it's a dimension of one of the solutions that Stamatia is gonna talk about. So there are purchasing solutions that help you identify who are the sustainable providers and how to minimize your impact. That's the last question. To the first question, there was a person that was asking about how to, in the agribusiness, really track the CO footprinting, get that traceability, and of course these green token solutions that Stamatia is going to talk about help us exactly with that, really understanding all the impacts from the source, from farm to fork, from the source to the final consumer. So I think that's ideal to hand it over to Stamatia.
That's amazing. So without further ado, Stamatia, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing, and what you have in store for us today? Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Yes, of course. Hello, Pedro. Hello, everyone. I will start to saying that we at SAP, we are focusing on actually 3 initiatives, which touches those 3 scopes, 1, 2, and 3. Those initiatives are Climate 21, Circular Economy, Environmental and Health and Safety. These are not products, they are initiatives that all of this touches those scopes. With Climate 21, we're generating value by calculating the CO2 footprint and also creating the CO2 transparency end-to-end. Companies will have, we will be getting carbon-related insights for their logistics, their product portfolio, their facilities. With circular economy, we are helping companies to go from a linear and most wasteful, let's say, supply chain to circular approaches. We're generating value by creating a zero wasted world. And with the environmental and health and safety, we enable companies to reduce risks from operations by resolving specific issues and manage risk, the overall risk, on a structural way. Pedro, if you can share the one slide here. We have some products that all of this lies into those 3 initiatives that I talked about. So the SAP Product Carbon Footprint Analytics calculates the CO2 footprint of the products. That means the impact of the product to the greenhouse effect.
And that talks, for example, to Adriana's point. When she's gonna buy that baby food, and you are not interested in the footprint of the company, you're interested in the footprint of that particular product because that's what you're gonna buy, correct?
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Carlos.
Yeah.
So the other products that we have is the SAP Digital Supply Chain Solutions. Those solutions aim to reduce the carbon footprint through efficient planning, optimized logistics processes, energy efficient operations, and a network that enables collaboration within the supply chain. Those are cloud-based solutions based on our SAP Cloud Platform and using S/4HANA Cloud and other capabilities of our SAP technologies. The third thing I want to mention is that we have incorporated into the greenhouse gas protocol for products, visualizations and KPIs to our SAP profitability and performance management solutions. These are easy to use. It is an easy to use environment for conducting business models and also creating real-time scenarios using the what-if analysis.
And in fact, if talking to some of our customers, one of the challenges that they have is, where do I get all this information? That's the first thing, okay? It's not only as easy to hop on the scale and see your weight. Scope 1, 2, and 3 have many sources of the GHG emissions. So some of them can be bought, some reports can be bought, and there are agencies that are specialized in selling that information, mostly for larger companies, if those are your suppliers, for example. Mm-hmm. But some of them need to be, you need to create your own algorithms, your own models, and you need some computing power, and you need some what-if scenario creation abilities, and you need, some technical components, and that's what we have, injected into this great product that allows us not only to do all those scenarios, but also to visualize and predict what is going to come in the near future.
Yeah, exactly. And the last thing, and I would like to mention, is about the Ariba green token and Concur solutions. And this is the answer to the question that we had. The Ariba, actually, it is a network where buyers and suppliers collaborate and do business. This is the Ariba cloud-based solutions that we have. Within the Ariba, we have created, as Carlos also mentioned, a marketplace to expand the trade of recycled plastics and plastics alternatives. This is a really interesting initiative. The second one, it is the green token. A lot of our customers, as we also mentioned, doesn't know from where the raw material comes from, or if the raw material is a sustainable material, it's a carbon neutral material. That's why with the green token, we can create the transparency of the raw material supply chain, let's say. And with our Concur solution and expense and travel management solution, we reduce the travel and carbon footprint. Those are the 6, let's say, solutions that we cover within SAP, and we cover all scopes 1, 2, and 3, with the last ones covering specifically the third scope. And also,
well,
it's yeah.
From my side, I have a question for all of us here. Is this enough? So you presented 6 solutions that SAP is putting together to fight the biggest problem humankind might have faced. Is this enough? I want to get from you a bit of a perspective on that, and if there is more that SAP and any other technology company out there could do. So for the 3 of you,
that's not enough. For sure, that's not enough. As we saw, these solutions cover partially scope 1, 2, and 3. Not all scope 1, 2, and 3. So you have to complement this with some other solutions on some other reports. So that's not enough. We ourselves are, of course, have a roadmap for some of these products under these 3 initiatives that Stamati explained so well: Climate 21, the circular economy, and EH&S. So we know where are some of the gaps, what our companies need, what our customers need. They are telling that what needs to be next. And of course, SAP is not the only provider. There are other providers with great products that also facilitate gathering this kind of information. But as you said, and as we mentioned at the beginning, knowing your numbers is not enough. Then you have to improve your numbers, and you have to have that culture, that DNA, and then you have to transmit that to your customer, and then you have to get feedback from your customer. And this is essential, this experience economy that Adriana was referring to. I do everything I can to minimize my footprint, but then how do I get compensated for all those efforts? Are my customers going to pay more for my products? Am I having less costs? Is it my bottom line, my top line, my green line? Is it new business models? All that needs to be understood. I just want to say one thing. I think that the make it or break it is when you really understand that all these sustainability efforts are going to help you uncover a new business model, a new population that you didn't reach out to, a new geography that you didn't enter because you didn't have the right green product or service. That's when you realize that there's a community begging for this kind of efforts.
And Carlos, in that sense, if you are talking to a CEO right now as their trusted advisor, chief sustainability officer for EMEA South, where do you recommend them to start tackling the problem? Is it upstream activities, downstream activities, scope 1, 2, or 3? So if you put that in a action plan structure, where to start?
Okay. That's the concept of the base year. It's called like that in this GHG world. You need to choose which is the year that you're going to compare yourself against and get your numbers. Not all the numbers. It's not going to be perfect. I'm meeting next week a company in Israel, and they only measure scope 1 and scope 2 emission. That's fair. And they decided that their base year is last year. That's great. Once you have a base year, you can compare, and then you can expand. It's not going to be perfect. Now, you need to know once you have your base information, your base year, what are you going to do? How's that information going to help you drive your company? Is it going to be efficiency, or is it going to be innovation, or both of them? That's what the CEO has to think about, in my opinion.
Sounds great. Well, as you can tell, we've been enriching you with content and great research done by the team. Every week they are doing this. They are making a research. They are looking into what is the most important areas, sometimes foundation information, even basics to some of you. But for many of you, this is new. This is something that we call the modern sustainability. And a lot of people, even outside of the sustainability world, needs to understand in order for them to take action as well. One thing that I want to leave with you with is the ability to get more information. So we are talking about food transparency, and the assets that we are discussing today, they are available on the SAP Cares landing page. We will have the link on the comments below for all of you here. So it's a landing page where you have several content on sustainability. And one of the things you will find here in this page is a white paper specifically written to cover food transparency, making transparency the main ingredient in food production, right? So you can click here, view publication, and that's going to be available for free to each one of you that wants to learn more and go deep dive in the topic of food transparency to earn consumer trust and loyalty in your food products. This paper has been signed by Dr. Hisham Maya, the General Manager for Consumer Industries in SAP EMEA South, and written by a great team of experts that put together everything that we spoke today, how you build trust, how you can actually amplify the voices of your consumers and use that on your behalf, and how you can really use technology to build that confidence through transparency. And as a matter of fact, traceability is going to be fundamental. And here in this paper, you will have coverage of the traceability topics. And at the end of the day, it's all about working with purpose, right? Share the sustainable value chain that you're working with, all that journey that you're going through to your consumers. That is the new sustainable advantage that is waiting for us. Now, I go back to our guests and speakers of the day. Any final words for our audience, and maybe share a bit of lights of what you're studying and what's coming for next week in your agenda?
I would like to share a call to action. The call to action is just if I'm sure you started the journey of your emissions reporting. If you didn't, of course, kick it off. You're going to uncover new things. And if you have done so, amplify it. Go to scope 3, really look into opportunities and look at that information with brand new eyes and see where can I really improve my operations and go to places that I've never been to. You want to, Samatia or Adriana, share what we're investigating for next week? Any ideas, topics? And of course, we are ready to hear the audience.
Yeah, like always, please share in the comments your ideas, your questions. What would you like to hear about? If you need to do more on some stuff, if you need to do less on some other stuff, what are you doing? How can we help you? If we can help you. And I think the next one, like you see, we are concentrating on different industries. So now we're going to move definitely on another industry and deep dive on those ones. And also, like we always do, we also talk about the sustain tech, yeah, the technology that can help us be sustainable in that specific industry.
Amazing. I have here a couple of comments in the chat for us. First one, thank you so much. Amazing live, by the way. Thank you so much. We are really trying to do this to add value to all of you and make sure that we share a bit of the knowledge and help organizations to take action. The second comment I have for you all is a hard one, and I want you to speak from your heart, okay? Let's see. So someone is asking, how can the average consumer trust that SAP and other tech companies are actually focusing on CSR for the consumer rather than just focusing on it because it is now a profitable business model to follow? Well, in the first place, is it a profitable business model? I understand that green comes with a premium in terms of cost structure and even how you need to organize your operations. But this is something that is needed for the planet. So I just want you guys to give quickly your view on this question because I think it's very important for our discussion here.
So we have to earn that trust. That's not a given. Okay, and that's why we're not here just 1 week. We're here every week with you, no matter what happens, every Wednesday. And not only us and our faces, but we have a great company and great people working in products that really help tackle this problem. But we have to earn this space, of course. But let me also share with you, Pedro, one thing, because I think that you mentioned something that is sustainability 1.0. Is a little bit old, which is that perception that sustainable products or green products come with a higher price tag. Because I use materials that are more sophisticated, or because I use transportation methods that are more expensive. That is true and may be true, but we're finding more and more that cost reduction is translated into the final price tag. And cost reduction has been achieved because you're looking into GHG emissions reductions. So more and more we find green products that are cheaper or at the same product, not only better. And that's sustainability 2.0. How can be so creative as to do something that it's not only better, but it's cheaper?
Great. Any other comment, Samati and Adriana?
Great point. Yeah, I think like Carlos said, we need to earn that trust, definitely. And it's something that it's built in time. At SAP, we're doing a lot of efforts to improve our footprint internally. not only with our customers, but we also want to give the example. So we are reducing the use of plastics in our offices. Of course, now we work from home, but in our offices there is no more plastic, definitely not in Italy. We are working a lot on the carbon footprint with the company cars, traveling less, definitely now, but even before that we were working on traveling less. We are working a lot to sustain the communities. We work on the inclusive, and we are actually active parts on lots of projects around plastic, around also cleaning the oceans from the plastic, not only creating the technology to help handle better plastics. So we really do a lot. So if you look, every company creates this report. Usually it's very long and boring, but I'm sure you can get some info out of there. And if you like, we can also get a bit more into deep on that topic. It could also be a topic for one of our next lives on how we are doing things at SAP and how we struggle to reduce our carbon footprint. We all have it, yeah. And there is also ways to offset it. Yeah, we cannot reduce it. We always want to be carbon neutral, but it's impossible to be carbon neutral by just reducing carbon. We also can offset it. This means that we can also do good stuff. Like, for example, a simple example, it's planting a tree. Yeah, so that's another way. And of course, there is regulations also behind all of this. And sometimes you just really need to follow the regulations. Somebody's checking you, and that's also how we earn the trust in these cases. Yeah, companies are just obligated to do it in some cases.
By the way, some companies not talking only about carbon neutrality, but being carbon negative. So if you consume green energy, there are many ways to become not only neutral.
Wonderful. So I think we are coming to the end of our weekly conversation on sustainability action. And one thing that we are organizing, especially for you, is the Sustainability Masterclass. We call that the Masterclass on Sustainable Tech. And this is for everybody that wants to take action. I will leave you today with a small clip of the first edition that happened last year, so you have a glimpse of what happens in the Masterclass for Sustainable Tech. And with that, I thank you so much for your time. I hope you join us next week once again. And we are here to address your questions, so you can leave the comments. You can collaborate with us to make sure that this time is the best way possible to you and to everybody that is listening to us. Thank you so much, and stay with the Masterclass.
We need to make it happen. We have to be pragmatic.
How we take care of the people, how we take care of the prosperity, and how we take care of our planet.
We challenge what is, and we inspire what could be.
To a real prosumer-centric model.
We have to get involved. You have to get involved.
Bartering and reusing and recycling is a whole new experience.
It is not just about the scale and the financials and the feasibility.
How can we bring together partners, whether they're in governments, whether they're local institutions?
Delightful madness. Also, we would like to do it in a sustainable way.
Talk is really cheap and action is the new currency.
So we do need many more companies to set more ambitious goals, as Vivek was also talking about.
At the end of the day, if you can mobilize your people, if you can create the right awareness, then you start to make an impact.
Sustainable tech is within reach. You have the abilities and the capabilities to make it work.
We are now in the decade of actions,
such that every single product becomes an asset to the brand.
It's something that requires a process, a vision, and then a cycle to put this in place.
You can't have a circular economy unless you have a connected economy.
It's a whole new way of looking at things.
It's really a shift from setting goals according to what is possible to setting goals instead according to what is really necessary.
And that the new decade of action that starts today.
So we need massive actions now, and companies need to be a lead in the conversation.